psychological first aid. What is psychological first aid? Psychological first aid is a humane and compassionate support that is given to an individual who is suffering from distress, which could be as a result of a crisis or an emergency situation, with the aim of setting the individual on the path to quick recovery, preventing distress from degenerating into acute stress or debilitating mental health disorders. It also seeks to identify and provide or meet the needs of the individual, which includes the individual's need for further or professional care and connecting the individual with this professional or expert care. Now, let's try to see what psychological first aid is not and what psychological first aid is. This is just to help us deepen our understanding. Psychological first aid is not evidence gathering. Psychological first aid is not counseling. Psychological first aid does not seek to satisfy the curiosity of the individual providing this first aid. Psychological first aid does not have anything to do with labeling. It does not seek to diagnose a mental health disorder. It is not a service that every individual that has been through a crisis or been involved in an emergency situation will need. Some people are more resilient than others, and they will not need any help from you in coping in a crisis or an emergency situation. It is not a service that's provided by only trained mental health experts. Anyone can be trained to provide psychological first aid. So what is psychological first aid? Psychological first aid seeks to provide support for the individual in need. It seeks to connect the individual with needed resources. Psychological first aid seeks to remove from harm to safety. It seeks to remove the survivor from harm to safety. It seeks to protect from further harm. It seeks to provide comfort and hope. It seeks to bring calm to the individual and to the environment. It involves listening to the survivor, but not pressurizing the survivor to speak and not asking irrelevant questions. Now, this is what psychological first aid is in a nutshell. I believe anyone can be trained to provide psychological first aid. You can be trained to provide psychological first aid.